Good morning, everybody. I am the Cynic. Alright, I'm lifting the ban on talking about anarchism for this one video for one specific point. This happened in an anarchist debate forum where most anarcho-communists are conjointly social justice warriors. There won't be anything anti-state or anti-government related, just anti-social justice warrior and pro-voluntary association and property rights. So you don't need to worry about that if you wish to proceed. While at a debate group on Facebook, one I was consequently kicked out of for this very reason, there was a question posed about the ethics of sexual favors in return for life-saving services. The question reads as follows. Miss Smith has a terminal disease. Mr. Jones owns the only cure. Would it be acceptable for Mr. Jones to refuse Miss Smith access to the life-saving drug unless she has sex with him? Now, ultimately, what this comes down to is property rights and voluntary association versus the right to life, that being life supersedes all things else. As you can see, the name redacted in yellow would be me, while the names redacted in red are social justice warrior anarcho-communists. I've been banned from the group, so I can't show you the 100+ comment shitstorm that followed, but I can tell you the word rape was thrown around a lot. So before I start off, I'd like to make it clear that I was debating the question for what it was, and only for what it was. Of course, there's a great deal more factors that go into this, like why is Mr. Jones the only one who has the cure for a disease only Miss Smith has? A little too convenient. How did Miss Smith get the illness? Is it an STD? If it is, does Mr. Jones still want to have sex with her? Is the disease contagious? And so on and so forth. It's an unrealistic bullshit question. But I like answering unrealistic and bullshit questions. Always good for a laugh, you know? One thing I like to explain right off the bat is the idiotic notion of the oppression of nature. The oppression of nature is the fundamental argument of all anarcho-communists against capitalism. The oppression of nature argument revolves around the fact that every living person and being on the planet has specific needs in order to survive. If these needs are not met, they will die. And since capitalism uses voluntary association to say, no, I will not give you anything simply because you need it, I want X in exchange if you want the food I produce or have, communists think that this is oppression because the currency exchange does not suit their beliefs with the seller making a profit off of the buyer. That since the buyer must pay more for the goods produced, the profit itself is exploitative, as well as the idea of refusal. Basically, anarcho-communists believe in positive rights, things that keep people alive and well, like welfare, while capitalists believe in negative rights, things that keep people from interfering with them so long as they don't commit aggression against others. Thank you for indulging that little bit of context. Now then, the logic here is that the hypothetical woman, Miss Smith, is needing to have sex with somebody or else she will die. It's assumed that she doesn't want to have sex with Mr. Jones, and that her needing to have sex in order to survive is what makes it rape. Rape, as far as I've come to understand it, is where one person uses force or coercion of their own making in order to extract sexual fulfillment from another person. So, why this isn't rape is because that which threatens Miss Smith isn't the making of Mr. Jones, but nature's creation of the illness. He merely offers the cure at a price. So, in essence, he's actually trying to help her, but he has a price. So, Miss Smith is incentivized to acquiesce to demands of Mr. Smith, or Mr. Jones, not at his behest, but at the behest of an external factor that holds no moral agency. The oppression of nature comes in when Miss Smith's decision isn't influenced by the man, but by the illness. Mr. Jones isn't forcing her to have sex with him, he's very much allowing it to be voluntary. The alleged cure is his property, and he's allowing a transaction to take place with the cost of a sexual favor, but Miss Smith is being coerced by the illness through threatening her own life. To break it down, Mr. Jones, in the mind of these social justice warriors, is rapist because he has a cure that can save Miss Smith's life, but he has a price for his services. Now, why the SJWs think it's rape is because there is coercion in effect, the oppression of nature, assuming the illness is natural and not man-made and given intentionally, of course. And because Mr. Jones has the cure to save her life, Miss Smith is entitled to that cure simply because she's alive, and he should want to keep her alive too, regardless of his own desires. Positive rights. However, the same logic could be applied to doctors being exploitative in their demand for compensation for life-saving services, or prostitutes who sell their bodies in order to buy food and feed themselves to keep themselves alive. Does this mean that every prostitute that has ever used her earnings to buy food to feed herself was the victim of rape? Well, in accordance with SJW definition of oppression and exploitation, yes. Yes, they are. Another argument that can be made here is that the woman could get another job to feed herself, while Miss Jones must have sex in order to live. Again, though, if a woman can't find work and can only whore herself out, it would be considered rape by the oppression of nature. Still a weak argument that appeals to life worship and positive rights. Mr. Jones hasn't done anything to have his property taken. The guy's just minding his own business, doing his own thing, and is kind enough to offer a dying woman a cure to her ailment in exchange for sexual service. Yet, as you can plainly see from the text, these SJWs are more than willing to commit violence, possibly murder, to take what's his and distribute it as they see fit. By the same logic, if he were to destroy the cure, they'd most likely name him a murderer and kill him for that too, despite the fact Mr. Jones had no part in her acquiring the disease, nor the disease killing her. Do what I say, and give me what I want, or else I will hurt/kill you. If that's how anarcho-communists operate, who needs the state, right? I know this is a delicate issue, one that will likely get me a great deal of scorn, but my belief in voluntary association and property rights supersedes all other people's rights to life. I use the term right, as I always do, and that I don't believe actual rights exist, but only use the term for the sake of comprehension and to convey my point. Voluntary association and property rights supersede the right to life, not in terms of a person being allowed to go out and commit aggression against others to kill them, but in the individual's right to refuse aid if they do not wish to give it. Which is the ugly side of voluntary association and the right to refusal. The fact people can refuse aid and allow others to suffer for it. It's ugly, but ugliness and displeasure don't make the truth any less true. Less convenient, maybe, but still factual. I answer this question solely for that reason, to acknowledge that there is a downside to voluntary association, the side nobody wants to talk about or look at, and remains the crux of most libertarian arguments for no other reason than it's a painful and unpleasant truth that appeals to life worshippers and most who adhere to it. Well, it doesn't appeal to them and turns them off to it, but that's a fact of it. No, to me, the truth hurts, but I don't hide from that kind of pain. I embrace it, and I consider it when I choose my actions and own deontology for the sole fact of seeing all aspects and accepting both the painful and pleasurable consequences and beliefs therein. No one is entitled to anything from anyone as far as I'm concerned, without an agreement being made. I don't consider nature's demands of life on earth oppression. I don't consider people keeping what they've made for themselves oppression. I don't consider one person's unaided problem, no matter how severe, the responsibility of other people who have nothing to do with it, oppression. And yes, I am making a distinction between one person's own problems and a problem that is a person's but will have consequences for everybody else, to dismiss that argument before it comes. Now, what I do consider oppression are acts of aggression and violence that are used by people to get what they want and steal from others. What I do consider oppression are threats of and or active aggressive violence in order to coerce somebody into conformity with their own beliefs. Maybe I'm a cold-hearted bastard for that, but the right of the individual to refuse association and transaction will always trump another person's life. Now, this entire situation revolves an absurd theoretical situation that's pretty much impossible to ever really happen. Looking at it from a pragmatic and realistic perspective, I think it would be safe to say that Mr. Jones likely had something to do with Miss Smith's gaining of the illness, since he's the only one with a cure and wants sex from her for said cure, which would heavily change my stance on how the situation should be dealt with. If not, then she got the illness. Did she get the illness from doing something stupid, like, say, fucking a guy with AIDS bareback? In which case, I'd feel no pity for her consequences for making such a stupid decision. She got AIDS because she was fucking stupid. I don't feel pity that a man who has the cure for AIDS doesn't want to give the cure to an idiotic woman. Context and what leads up to a situation are important factors in determining moral reactions. And as you can plainly see from this scenario, there is absolutely no context or lead up whatsoever. Miss Smith just wakes up one morning and has the disease. Mr. Jones just has the cure, and no explanation as to how either have what they have. I could have played on this, but chose to answer the question for what it was, and I got the reaction I was hoping for. The Anarcho-SJWs are willing to use coercion and violence to get what they want, regardless of consent. Funny how important consent is to them, right up until it comes to getting something that they want, eh? I am the Cynic, everybody. Have a nice day.